Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. One thing very unique about the Sanatana Dharma is, in Sanatana Dharma alone, as far as I know, my knowledge goes to, is the only Dharma where that there is a very clear pathway is created to see that how we can go spiritual in this spiritual journey. The rest of the places, the rest of the organizations, or the rest of the faiths are that you do certain things that are supposed to be morally correct and socially all right, and then you will go to heaven or hell. This is what is the idea that they have. And there are people who have gone beyond that also, but then they were just considered as mystics. Like, for example, Moses must have had that kind of an experience when he went on to Sinai Hill, or good deal for the recent times that we know. Earlier also that we have seen that Pythagoras is one who had that kind of an experience. But then they were supposed to be just free kind of an experiences. There is not something that like an orderly way of doing kind of certain practices to get into that state. This is the way that all the other cultures are. Even when you go to the Eastern cultures also, when you go to, like for example, the Chinese that you go, there's somebody who created haikus, and in Japanese and all that. There were people who had that kind of an experience. After Buddha's advent there is a kind of influence of doing the practice of sadhana that has emerged in that. Otherwise, in the other cultures, that this kind of a sadhana aspect is not there. It was purely that whatever that social and cultural kind of a thing, moral kind of thing, you take care of it. That's all of that's what all about it. There is nothing like a spiritual seeking, spiritual attainment, getting for a goal. Even that is also not there. But that was so profusely, profoundly discussed in the Indian culture. In that sense, that Indian culture is very unique compared to the other cultures. Sanatana Dharma has this aspect of it. Right from the beginning in Sanatana Dharma, we always had this aspect that people consciously go towards that spiritual journey. Provision is given, and that's what is called as sannyasa dharma. That means to say that your identification with the world outside slowly withdrawn, and then you just go towards self, and then attaining the self, realizing the self. This is what is given. The self-realization is something which is very, very important in the Indian culture, whereas in the other cultures, it's only that somebody has to salvate you. Salvation is the way that they look at. So in that sense, that in this culture, this is unique. So therefore, that these two kind of things are there, and that is given in our culture itself, like the way that it is said that the our life purpose itself is to go for spiritual seeking. How many people go there or not, it's not important, but purpose is given like that. That's why we have the what is called as the Purushartha. Purushartha is the purpose of life, where um, we have all these brahmacharya and grahastha and vanaprastha. The last one is sannyasa. As an ashrama. Ashrama is a state that you get into, and that provision is given for everybody, so that those who could go to that state, that is fine. Sannyasa does not mean that people would leave their houses and go away. They may live in the house itself, but then following the sannyasa dharma, sannyasa aspect, they might be there. This is the kind of thing that was given. But there are some people who have uh, urged to go to that sannyasa. That means to say, the spiritual seeking comes from early on. For them, the provision is there in such a way that whenever you have very strong urge to go in that direction, you can go. And that's what there is a mantra which also says, indicates that Yadahareva pravajet, tadahareva virajet. Wherever that you have, whenever that the spark comes within you, then you can go. And because of that reason only, Shankaracharya at the age of 7 years, he already took to the path of sannyasa. We have several such instances where people have gone in that direction towards that. Otherwise, this whole purpose of the life in this world also is to see that how we can go towards that spiritual journey. Ultimately, that's what is the goal. So that is the reason why we have this purpose of life, which is called as the Purushartha, where Purushartha takes care of whatever that your needs at various stages of your life. When you are young, when you are in a position to learn, and then when you become youth, and also when you have responsibilities, you can manage and all those things. And further, when you pass on that responsibility back to the next generation, that's what is Vanaprastha. And then finally, you resolve yourself into seeking into the spirituality. So these are the four different stages of life that were given. That is one of the reasons why Shankara he catered to all these different levels, all these different stages. See, he has not only given the sannyasa dharma, whatever the explanations that are there in the Upanishads and Bhagavad Gita and all those things for the sake of sannyasi that they have given, but at the same time, his interpretations are also there for the householder because that he has considered this householder. He is a very, very important component of this society. In fact, so important component that they have to realize the importance of sannyasa so that they take care of sannyasa. This idea was there in Shankara, and because of that reason only, Shankara has given different kind of methods of practices this householder to do so that he is constantly in that path. That's the reason why he created all these stutis, stotras, and he has created this Shanmata Stapana, all that kind of thing he has done. In fact, it is very unfortunate that people think that Shankara is only given Advaita Siddhanta. It's not just Advaita Siddhanta. He has given so many things which are at the various levels to see that how it can finally lead us to that. So that's why he has given very great importance to the both uh, samsara life and also sannyasa life. And therefore, that he has given the methods, what we need to follow at the samsara level, and what are the things to follow at the sannyasa level also, that he has given both these things in this. And in this Bhaja Govindam, very unique poem is this, Bhaja Govindam, that it tries to indicate for both these things what can be the pitfalls, what can be the shortfalls, and what is the progress that you can go. And this is what he has given in these sutras to indicate that how we need to proceed, understand this. So it's not just only for sannyasa, but it's also for samsara. This is what is given. In fact, the way that the very starting of the Bhaja Govindam, it is for a householder that he was a pandit, and then he was looking into the etymology, he was looking into the grammar to find out what is the argument. From that it started. That's why Mudhamate, somebody who is knowledgeable, that he has the knowledge about the world outside and all that, but then he is going for grammar rather than going for Govinda Bhaja. So this is how the whole Bhaja Govindam Sutra started. So we see that these two different kind of um, shlokas which cater to different kind of people, what are the ideas that are there. Apart from that, last time also I was saying that because that he has given the sannyasa sampradaya such a great importance, he has given sannyasas at various levels. Dashanami sampradaya that he has created of various sampradayas. Not only sampradayas he's created, but he wanted to have that identification of those sampradayas. For that, there are various symbolic kind of gestures that are there. What kind of hairstyle, what kind of jata that they have, what kind of various other symbols that they would have. These are the various things that are there. Like, for example, a giri has a different kind of a thing. Saraswatis have different kind of an approach, whereas the same thing, Bharatis have a different kind of approach. You can see that this difference in the sannyasins today. So they belong to a particular sampradaya altogether. That's one of the reasons anybody who sees any sampradaya, any sannyasi going, they immediately ask, what is the sampradaya that you belong to? Of all these sampradayas, one person who has really appeared to be deviated from that is Shankaracharya. He's Vivekananda, and that's what he created, the Ramakrishna Paramahamsa Sampradaya. But then they also have the Advaita Sampradaya of the Bharati kind of a thing. That means to say, knowledge is their importance and imparting the knowledge, but being in the society, working together with that. Like that, they have created. So he has given provision to see that even the modern sannyasins also can have their own way, but at the same time, it can conform to one particular sampradaya or the other. So therefore, that all these various symbols, various ideas that are there for various sampradayas. On the other hand, that for the grihasthas, for them, for the progress that they have to, the life is supposed to be not for just getting entertained and getting lost in this life, but it is to see that how we can progress. So, what is the way to progress? Given a chance that you always uh, fill yourself with what is called as pilgrim centers, what is called as the visiting the temples, visiting various rituals, creating various rituals. All these things were created. That's why in this culture, probably that there was never a tourism where people used to do for the sake of any pleasure. It was always for the sake of any of these pilgrim centers. We always used to think of it. Only probably the first place where people started having this pleasure trip is for Taj Mahal. Before that, we don't have anything of that nature. It's always, in fact, I remember that even my parents' time, they never ever thought about going for any pleasure trip to see some place, something like that. It was always associated with some temple visit, some kshetra visit, or some tirtha visit. This is what it was there all the time. Idea is that you always mold your life towards that spirituality, that going there. But just don't go there just like that, but to see that you have a bhava behind it, yeah, the feeling that is behind it. These are the things, this is what is the idea that they have given. And this is what, let's go back again, the Sutra 14th and 15th, where is given, look at the way that he has given. The 14th Sutra is for the sake of sannyasi, and then 15th Sutra is for the sake of householder. Now, look at the difference between these two, the way that they are approached. Given by Padmapada and also Potaka, these are the disciples of Shankara who given that. Padmapada is given for the sake of sannyasi. Jatilo Mundi Limchatakesha, Kashayambara Bhaktavesha, Pashyanapitana Pashyati Mudha, Udaranibittam Bahuputavesha. So, this is what the 14th Sutra that Shankaracharya, we have already seen that. So, when he says that Jatilo Mundi, Jatilaha Mundi, Lunchatakesha, these are all the various systems that are developed for various sannyasa ashrams. Some sannyasins that they completely shave their head, some have the long hair matted into the form of jata, jota, and all those things. But there are some sannyasins who have plucked their hair so that again and again removing the hair does not come into the picture. And different varieties of kashayambara. These are all the things that are created. The differences are created not to fight between them, not to create one upmanship over the other, which normally seldom we see in the sannyasa sampradaya. What is that again? You have given up everything to see that you take out all these kind of things. For that reason that you have come out. For that reason that you have taken the sannyasa. Sannyasa means that you have no identification with anybody. You are all by yourself. And then you do the things that are there for yourself. So this is what is the simple idea. But there also that you see that Pashyannapitana Pashyati Buddha. The Buddha Nimittam Bhaukutavisha. That means again to see that how You can, this is all for the sake of your stomach, for the sake of that people admire you, people come to you. And this is what that you try to look into all those things, which should not be the matter. So that means to say, the more and more that you're trying to please others, the more and more that you're doing these things for the sake of others, which is basically that the world has become important. Then why did you take sannyasa? You can be in the samsara itself. I've seen in one of the ashrams that two sannyasins, once that they have some bhajans up there, that they would come out and stand, and the disciples, the bhaktas who are there, they form a queue in front of them to bow down at their feet. And it's always that they are always comparing that whose queue is longer than whose. Is that the way that you need to see? That means say how many people that they fall at your feet. Again, that you have come outside into the material world. You are not going inside. And that's what he says. Udara nimittam bahukutavesha. All these different forms, different things that they have taken. He is again for the sake of your worldly possessions, worldly activity, worldly gain. Kashaya is supposed to be a very simple cloth. That means it doesn't have any. In fact, one point of time, Shankara Vivekananda was asked, "Why is this Kashaya Vastra?" The sannyasis. He says that it is the earth color. See, it is the earth color that we take it, so that we this body belongs to the earth, and tomorrow that body is also consumed by the earth. That's what is the idea. And a sannyasi from that moment has got that idea. But then even in this kashaya also today, that there are so many different varieties, and there also that there's so many classes that are there, higher class, lower class. Why all these things? It is all because Pashyan Napichana Pashyati Mudaha. That means to say, the fools that are seeing, uh, though seeing, do not see. That means what is supposed to be seen. In the case of giving up all these things, but then they they still do not see that what is supposed to be seen. They do not see that. One time I was in Dubai. Some people invited me. I went there, and then there was one sannyasi. Swamiji was there. And then he said, Raghuram, let's go and meet that Swamiji. We went to meet Swamiji. And then this person was introducing me to Swamiji, saying that Raghuram, he is working for Vyasa, and he's a teacher. And his job is to give yoga teaching. But together with that, he also gives up some philosophy. And then he has given up. He was working as an engineer, but he has given up as an engineer, which was a minor detail. But then the Swamiji immediately said, I also did my engineering. I did my post-graduation in Canada. Who asked that? Why are you talking about that? That means to say, whatever that you have becomes like important for them, somebody, but what you give up also becomes important for somebody. It is such an odd thing. That means that what is supposed to be seen, you don't see that. Pashyan napichanam pashyati mudha udara nimittam bhakutavesha. All these things are supposed to be for the sake of your earning money. By showing all these things that you are making your living, if you are supposed to make your living, that's what the whole grahasthashrama is there. More decent, more concrete, and more organized. Grahasthashrama. Not only that, if you are a person that with a beautiful spiritual idea and then get into the world to be grahastha, and then the grahasthashrama will be purified. Grahasthashrama will be purified. Now that is also not there, and you taking sannyasa is also not that sannyasa being purified. So you are lost. So therefore, this is what the 14th sutra, it talks about the sannyasa dharma, and what is the way that sannyasa dharma has to be taken up. It is taken up in such a way that all these things are done for the sake of that freeing oneself from the world outside. The comparison, these things that are there. Even an ordinary simple thing that Indian philosophy says that comparison is not the way that the God created. There is no comparison in the God's creation. It's only in the world that people make this particular comparison. There is a big tree, there is a small tree. There is one mango tree, another mango tree. The yield is so different. But the mangoes tree do not compare with each other, and they do not get into the trouble of feeling inferior and superior kind of a. Even in the world, in the God's creation, that it is like that, we try to impart this idea into the families generally. Then where is the question of sannyasins having that kind of an attitude? So, udaranivittam bhaktavesha, these things are to see that how you can get more and more focused towards the world outside. It's not that for the sake of filling the stomach. The idea is that the ahara, which is supposed to be for the food for the stomach, ahara is also for the whole thing that is there in the system. Now, this ahara at every level is to see that you please what is the need that you take it, but then you get so much that it is for the sake of shining in the world that you do it. So why do you do that? That is where you so easy to get misguided in this particular path. The 15th sutra, now he comes to the householder. That means to say a family who created Angam Galitam Palitam Mundam Dashanavahinam Jatam Tundam Ruddho Yat Gruhitva Dantam Tadapanam Chati Asha Pindam Bhaja Govindam Bhaja Govindam Govindam Bhaja Mudhamate. Very subtle hint uh, in this particular sutra that is given by Padmapada. That is, that one who is living in this world, there are so many rituals suggested for this people in the world. In fact, all these vratas are given to see that how you fast sometime, you feed sometime, and sometimes you do all those things rituals for the sake of the departed souls. So, like that whole 9 yards are there. Everything is given. Everything is given to see that the events that are there in the society, that is there in the world outside, they are given importance, but then importance are given to see that how that spiritual growth takes place. And that's why we have such a beautiful arrangement in that whenever somebody dies, we do all this Shraddha Karma. If you look at Shraddha Karma, the main important aspect of this Shraddha Karma is that the person who is supposed to do the Shraddha, he will not have food. He'll be fasting until they finishes the Shraddha, which may be one time, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. This is not one time. This is year after year that you perform. Is it not something like disciplining yourself, going to the world outside? And second thing is that you invite some Brahmins and give some dana. That means you part with your riches that is there very happily. And in giving, somebody accepts it, then you feel obliged. You touch the feet. See how many ways that it creates you, gives you that humility, gives you that idea of freedom from the material contact, material world, and also discipline for yourself. So all these things are planned in such a way that even a householder will develop with the help of by being in this world. These rituals are given, these ideas are given about the fasting, about eating, or about eating more. That's what is the festival time. A very beautiful arrangement that we have. Festival time you feed 3, 4, 5 different varieties of sweets. I mean, even if that you excess on that day on your stomach, after all, how much can you eat? But then only that day, all the different varieties of sweets are there. The rest of the time, you don't have that. That means a normal time that you are over, you are normal. But on a festival day that you celebrate by taking the sweet. The rest of the time, we never used to have sweets. In fact, I remember earlier when we were children that you go to somebody's house, lunchtime you have lunch and dinner time that you have dinner. That's all kind of thing. In between, if there is any sweet or given, then they would immediately ask that what is the occasion? Is there any special occasion sweet is there? Indicating that if there is no special occasion, sweet is not there. It was such a healthy discipline that we used to have it. So this kind of a discipline was set up in the whole society itself at various levels, depending upon how much one can take the discipline, how much one cannot take the discipline. There were people in the society who would fast almost like 3, 4, 5 days in a week. they would not have food. Some reason or the other. Ekadashi, therefore fasting. And it is Devi's day, therefore fasting. And some boy, some child is born in the family, therefore fasting. So, like that, there could be several reasons to do this fasting. All these things are for the sake of spiritual growth, development. And extension of this is given in the form of various vratas. That means you take up these vratas, you do this fasting. Idea is not to punish the body, but idea is to see that you find a discipline in such a way that you can transcend the demands of the body. You don't have any demand on the body. And demand is what is supposed to be asha. You don't have any kind of asha. To cut down all these ashas. That's why all these practices are given. Asha means desire. So cut down the desire, all these things are given. In fact, I have seen such strong way that people have the discipline on themselves. It was in the Ekadashi time that you don't eat food. Some people very strict follow the pattern in such a way they only take water, nothing else. And that person who I'm referring to is a person who he was actually performing daughter's wedding on that day. He invited every guest and from boys' side, and he was feeding the whole society, everybody. But then he was not having any food. When we asked that why don't you have food, he said today is Ekadashi, I don't take food. At least take something, take some sweet, take some special dish. No, I take only water of the Ekadashi. At least fruit, diet, nothing. How strict it is. So that means somebody can be so strict with all these things to see that how spiritually one can grow. These are very, very nice practices that are there. The same thing about not having sleep. This is called a jagarana. Like that, umpteen number of practices are there to see that how you can transcend the material requirement of the body. The transcending the material requirement is freedom from the asha or the desire. When you are free from the desire, that's what is your moksha. Moksha is when you are still there, but the desires are not there. Desires are already dead. That means to say moksha. Dissolved, that's what is. Whereas the mrityu, the death is when you are not there, but the desires continue to be there. Even in the deathbed, you carry the desires. That's what is mrityu. So all these things are supposed to give us the idea of freedom from the desire, attachment from the material. In fact, it is also said that which culture has more number of disciplines, that culture has less number of psychological aberrations. That means to say they have a very stable psychology. So all these things are born in this particular culture and schemes are given to see that how they can be taken care of at various levels. But this body, with all its equipment that is there connected with this body, it's a limited purpose. It's only for this life. It has to one day or the other it to proceed. We see in front of us, everybody who has come is gone. Nobody survives. Nobody stays. However great a person may be, in the books of history that is already gone with the history. So therefore, that death can also affect little by little your own sensory organ. They lose their importance. They lose their application. So sooner or later, this is what is going to happen. Somebody dies 100 years. Somebody lives for 100 years. Somebody lives for 70, 80 years. So, but then one day or the other, everybody has to go. And then in this whole span of huge life that is there for thousands of years, millions of years, whatever that you live, 70, 80 years, is such a small little thing. But then we have to follow that particular one. It's not only that we follow that. Any creature which is born in this take birth in the society, in this manifestation, will have to undergo death. Jatasya hi dhruva mrityu. That's what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. And mrityu can occur in small little ways. So now here he says angam galitam. That means to say the body is wearing out. It has its natural quality. Palitam mundam, that means to say the hair is becoming white, or they are losing the hair completely. All those things can happen. Dasharavahinam jatam tundam. Now, the tooth also falls. You don't have to. It's a natural process that's going on. In the beginning, at the child, when the tooth go away, then permanent tooth will come. They're very important. But then this tooth goes away, these teeth go away. Afterwards, you don't have any more. So, but then this is a natural process. This is a process that we invite. Dashanavahiram jatam tundam. Vruddhoyat gruhitva dandam. As you proceed further, the eyes also become weak, the digestion becomes weak. Whatever that's supposed to be extraordinary, now you see that it's becoming weak. In various ways, various forms, the death is coming on you, which is supposed to be natural. But in spite of the fact, all these things are there. Tadapana munchat yasha. You mean to say that when these things, the desire will not go away, but desire continues to be there. And it's very strange to see that people who have nothing, they have great desires. Desire is basically that tomorrow I will get something, or later on I will be able to do it. Once this is all right, then I will come back. I'll get back to it. So everybody thinks that this asha is there, is the one which leads it. Particularly those who have nothing, their asha is much more stronger. For the people that who have, their asha is not that. Look at the way that all our great saints and sages and they have all taken to the spirituality, whether it is Buddha, whether it is Mahavir, all the Tirthankaras that are there, they were all supposed to be kings, zamindars. Buddha himself was a big king. But then look at the way what happened to them. That they got the idea of dejection. Asha is completely dropped off in them. Whereas the same kind of an asha dropping that you cannot see in the case of poor people. Though they don't have anything in this world to live, but then asha is something which continues. The desire is something which continuously hangs on to them, which drives them. I keep seeing the beggar on the street. He has developed leprosy and the fingers fall off. He can't even walk. He's on the cart and then somebody is driving him and he's begging for food. Nothing is there. But in spite of it, he will not die. The desire to live is something very strong. Desire, hoping that something will happen, something good will happen, is something which is holding on to this. They could easily turn towards the spirituality. We think that they don't have anything else. Now it is time to turn to spirituality. Not like that. Not only that, these cultures, Indian culture, when we had plenty of it, that was the time we had developed all this spiritual knowledge. Those days, we were not lacking of the riches that were there in this particular culture. In fact, until the British came to rule this country, we were the richest country. Not only the richest country at that point of time, high GDP, but also there was so much of charity in this particular country. Just give. This was the way that this culture always had plenty. And when this culture has that plenty, and it's at that time that people have taken sannyasa, they have given it up. So, but then this giving up in the form of sannyasa that they are given, if they have followed that, then probably it's for the sake of going to the spiritual journey. But then again, because that their asa was there within them, they were also running around like that. In fact, that's a very important thing that happened in this particular culture. The way that I look at it is that when Buddha came to this culture, at that time, there was so much of engrossed in the rituals and all those things that Buddha wanted to awaken them towards the meditation. And it does not require big paraphernalia. You can just watch your breath, and from that you can go to samadhi. This is what is the way that Buddha has given us the teaching. And then it was such a big relief for the people because that you don't have to go through all those rituals and everything. Lot of rituals which span life after life after life. So you can come out of it and then you can just go towards meditation. This was the message that Buddha came with. And he only said that, come on, your dhyana should be about anapana. That means breathe in and breathe out. Look at that. Absorb in that. So such a great revolution that he brought about. And therefore that he has created such a huge, large band of sannyasis. Large band of sannyasis. Probably in this culture, there is any time when we had such profuse number of sannyasins in this particular country, bhikshus that were there, that Buddha used to call them. It was during the Buddha and immediately after the Buddha, that was the time it happened. So the king used to turn, therefore the whole kingdom used to turn towards that bhikshus. It has come to a level where the bhikshus were so many in number, the householders were very few. Sannyasins so many, householders were few. And the sannyasins were to be supported by the householders. So as a result of it, there was a total imbalance in the society. It was the whole sannyasa ashrama was made very simple, very easy. That's the reason why Shankara had to come. And one of the important points that Shankara brought about is that it is not just like that sannyasa has to occur. It is a commitment that you have to have with it. So therefore, this whole idea of changing has happened in the case of Buddha. Another thing Buddha really did was try to do was that the temples used to be a lot of rituals, puja, and a lot of dirt, lot of these things, flowers, this, that, everything used to be there. Smoke, dust, flowers, everything. What is supposed to be a sacred place, but then that was not clean, that was not pure. That's the reason why Buddha, in fact, wanted to bring about a change in the temples. After he came back from his meditation realization, when he came back, he wanted to do that. But then Orthodox priests never wanted that kind of a thing to happen. They have kept Buddha away from these temples. Buddha was not against Hindu culture, but only thing is he wanted that this has to be modernized. Therefore, what happened is that the Buddha's followers' ideas was there. They have created the Buddha aramas, the Buddha temples, which are clean and neat, and there is no mess up there. Whatever the flowers you have to offer, fruits that you have to offer, incense that you have to offer, there's a proper arrangement in such a way that it does not create any dirt and dust and all kinds of things there. That's why you look at all these Buddhist temples, which are so clean and clear. And that transformation is given by the Buddha. But then in the process, what happened is that more number of sannyasins have happened, and then householders were not there. So therefore, the sannyasis, they became sannyasis, all right, Buddha sannyasis, called as bhikshus. But they didn't have the purpose of journey in that direction. See, in the household that you have disciplines given at the household level, but at the same time, you have an opportunity to indulge in the world outside. Whereas if you take a sannyasa, you have no opportunity to indulge in the world outside. But the disciplines come from within. If you don't have that discipline, the sannyasa dharma becomes all the more problem. And that was the burden of the society for a very short period of time. Immediately, the whole thing has to become like a burden. That's the reason why Shankara has to revive that whole sannyasa. But you think that a person has, if he has everything, then he has tasted everything, he knows everything, then he might develop the vairagya, that means the freedom from the asha, the desire. But one who has not tasted it, if you ask him to be free from the asha, he will not have it. This society had everything, therefore that there were people who were genuinely crossing beyond the level of asha. So therefore that they could become that. So therefore, this, though they were there in the society, in the world outside, but then they were not caught by the asha. That's what he says, that angam galitam palitam mundam dashanavahinam jatam tundam vruddho yati gruhitva dantam tadapana muchyati asha pindam. Such people, then asha pindam, the desire does not leave them. Khalil Gibran, he wrote a poem, The Prophet, where there's a question, what is that which makes people live again and again? What is that? He asked river, he asked this, he asked mountain, why do you live? Nobody had an answer because they were only alive. But then he asked the sky, and the sky said it is the hope. Idea is that when there is nothing, there is a hope. When you don't have anything, then you look for the hope. When you have everything, then the hope will not be there. It is the hope which makes them to continue. So this is what is the 15th sutra, which is about the Totaka has given this. This is for the householders. The 16th one is given by the Hastamalaka. Agre Agre Vahnihi Pushte Bhanuhu Ratro Chubuka Samarpita Janu Karatala Bhikshaha Tarutala Vasaha Tadapina Munkyat Yasha. It's about the sannyasi. He talks about sannyasi. He has given up everything. That's how consciousness came. It has to have a lot of courage. It's not a question of you don't have it, you have everything. But then he came out of it. Buddha had everything, he came out of it to take the sannyasa. So you have everything and then you come out to take the sannyasa. You just leave the dependence of the object outside. Now, when you don't have that, naturally what happens is that the changing the weather, changing the seasons and all that, yes, they still have an effect on your system. And that's the reason why that you see these sadhus, they change the places. In the winter, they're someplace, and the moment it becomes colder and colder, they move to the warmer places, and then they move to the colder places once the warmer places becomes too hot. It's like the way the migratory birds migrate. But the idea is not that you have to endure that, or idea is not to kill yourself, but to see that somehow that you try to manage yourself in all these things, but not too much dependent on the objective world outside. This is what is sannyasa. So here he says that agre vahnihi, in front, because it is cold, that you have the fire in front of you, pushte bhanu, and when you wake up, when you get up in the morning, and there is sun, and then you sit in the sun, take the sunlight, because that you are feeling cold. Body has its own dharma. So you need to take care of this body's dharma. You may not take it very luxuriously, but to give it whatever that is important for that. And this is what is the idea of agre vahnihi pushte bhanu ratro chubuka samarpita jal. It's so cold in the night and you don't have anything to cover because you are a sannyasi, given up everything. Therefore, that you just fold yourself, tighten yourself. You just hold it tight yourself in such a way that you don't feel the cold. The body heat is observed. The body is circulated with it. Chumuka samarpita jam. That means to say you fold the legs in such a way that your chin and the knee, they are joined together. That means to say you are holding yourself tight. Don't allow the shake to take place. Don't allow expose your part of the body to the winter outside. Karatala bhikshaha, tarutala vasaha. Karatala bhiksha, in hand. That you have the bhiksha patra. You go outside and then you get the bhiksha. Part of this culture is that the society creates the householders so that they support the sannyasins. They give the bhiksha to the sannyasins. And bhiksha was supposed to be, if you take care of the bhiksha of sannyasin, it's supposed to be a very great spiritual service that you are doing. It's a spiritual growth for you, not for the other. For him, it's only just stomach is filling. But for you, it's a big spiritual growth. You look for sannyasa. You invite sannyasa into your place. So bhiksha patra is there in their hand. Tarutala vasaha. Then your place where you stay is under a tree. Buddha left everything, the whole palace, because he was seeking for the truth. He is seeking what is beyond death. And that process that he left Lumbini, his house, and then left. When he was leaving on that day, that night, halfway he went by the chariot and he asked Chinna, his friend, take back the chariot. Chinna was shocked. He said, no. Maharaj, please come along with me. He said, no. What is this? I have to leave you and then go to the palace? Yes. Why don't you come to the palace? Buddha said, palace is burning. That means whatever that is there in the palace is completely, continuously decaying. It's approaching the death. It's a slow poisoning. Life itself is a slow poison. That's what approaching towards the death. That's what is happening. And then he left Channa and then he went out. He went out with a begging bowl and he sat under the tree. Sat down under the tree doing the meditation as a sannyasi for such a long time. His body was completely emaciated. All these explanations that are there. Agnevati Pushte Bhanu Ratro Jubika Samarpita. And that was the state that Buddha was there under the tree. It's so beautifully explained that when Buddha was sitting under the tree meditating, and he was like simple bones and there's no flesh at all on his body. At that time, the river is there, Niranjana. On the other side of the river, this little girl was there by name Nirmala, and then she had dream. Daytime that she had a dream. The dream. God appeared to him and said that there is one Devata, the god of forest is there. Why don't you take the rice pudding, the rice and he didn't have food. She came outside and saw nobody, looked around. Maybe my own hallucination, she went back to sleep. The moment that she once again went back to sleep and immediately again something shook her up and then wake up and then come on, go and then serve it. This time when she came out, very carefully when she looked at, she saw this whole banyan tree was there on the other side. And then on the banyan tree looked like that the same color, same thing, but a face and the ribs were there. She closely watched, found out the man is sitting there, but he was so emaciated that he was looking like Tiger. Oh my God, I would have missed him. Then she came with that and served him. Anyway, that's how he came back to the normal life and all that happened. Once he realized, then he went back home. Back home because let me start the reformation at the home itself. So he went there. His father, Bimbisara, was there and then said, what is this? Why did you come here? You came here to get back the kingdom. I'm not going to give you the kingdom. I will not give you. Buddha smiled. I said, if I wanted the kingdom, there's no reason for me to go away. I was here only. I was your son. And I was legitimate hire for this particular kingdom. So that was not right. But then why did you come? I just wanted to share with you my experience. It's a wonderful experience. But they were not prepared to listen to him. By that time, actually, it was about 9 years. So his son, Rahul, he has grown up to 8-year-old boy, 9-year-old boy. Because on the day that he was born, Buddha left him. He did not even see him. So he was introduced to Buddha, that is your son. And then Buddha felt nice about seeing Rahul. But then the father was so angry. He said, no, I have nothing to give you. Buddha laughed. He said, I didn't ask you for anything. I don't want anything. That's the reason why I left. But then, it's all right, you might need. That's your arrogance. But if your son asks, Dad, give me, what can you give me? What's the answer do you have? You have to cut a sorry figure. Buddha smiled again and said that, let him ask, then I can give him. Now, Buddha's father, he actually provoked his son, Rahul, come on, go and ask your dad. Rahul goes to Dad and asks, Dad, what can you give me? Buddha had this Bhiksha Patra, that container that was there, where he was collecting his Bhiksha, and that he gave it to son. He said, this is what I have, I give it to you. I give this to you. And that was like a great present for Rahul. Rahul took that. Immediately they followed Buddha. He followed Buddha. Buddha's father was really shocked. I thought I lost my son, now I lost my grandson also. Both of them have gone. And Rahul was one of the first disciples of Shankar, Buddha. And that's why we have in Sarnath, all these disciples, they have taken their first lesson under Buddha. And that group, one statue is also there, which is a boy's statue. And that boy's small statue was supposed to be Rahul's. So the Bhiksha is something which is so sacred, and that he gave it, so that Rahul has taken it right away. So Karatala Bhiksha, Tarutala Vasaha. We are living under the tree, and tree is your shelter. Tadapanamunchatyasha. You come out with all those things and come to this because Buddha has done, Buddha has become like that, you also become like that. All those things you do it, but at the same time that you are caught up with the asha pasha. Pasha is the snares, pasha is the bondage. What is the bondage that you have with all those things at the end of it? It is the asha, it is the desire, is the bondage that you cannot leave it. And that desire is the one which goes beyond the life after life. What decides you, your future life, is about this asha. That's why you might have given up everything. But agre vahnihi pushte bhanahi ratro jubuka samarpita janahi karatala bhiksha tarutala vasaha tadapana munchatyasa. Only way that you can come out of this asha is Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja Modhamate. Idea is that I want something. When can I have it? When do I have it? When I'm not satisfied with what I have it. When I fully feel that I'm satisfied with what I have. And whatever that comes out of me is a manifestation of whatever that is there hidden behind it. And when that's the way it comes up, then that is basically the way Bhaja Govindam. Bhaja Govindam is not asking God for something. Bhaja Govindam is not praying for something. Bhaja Govindam is giving an expression to what all that you have, what all that you are given, without asking. And that's what is the way Bhaja Govindam happens. Similarly, 17th Sutra, it's again for the sake of householders, he is given. Kurte Ganga Sagara Gamanam Vrataparipalana Matva Tanam Jnana Vihinam Sarva Matena Bhajatana Muktim Janma Shatena Bhaja Govindam Bhaja Govindam Govindam Bhaja Medhamate. A person who is a householder, who is living in this world, set up a unit in the society, and it is this kind of most wonderful, harmonious, illustrious units in the society will make the society a very spiritual place. And not only this, as I said earlier, Shankara has provided whatever that is there in the parampara itself, and all those things created rituals again. The rituals like going to the pilgrimages. This was there right from the Ramayana time, Mahabharata time. We have the idea of how the people used to go on pilgrimage, various places. In fact, those days, pilgrimage they have to go, they have to negotiate in the forest. Therefore, they go in a caravan, in a group, so that they are safe together. So that is the idea that they were manifesting. So these kshetras that were there to see that again and again you charge yourself for spiritual journey. You are in the household, You are at home, but at the same time, you need to again and again, your battery has to be charged for the spiritual journey. And that spiritual journey battery has to be charged. Is provided by various of these things. One thing is the rivers, and not only the rivers also have kshetras, that in the places where people have concentrated and did the meditation, did the puja, worship, this, that, and all that, so that the place is charged with the spiritual knowledge, spiritual idea. Whether it is Rishikesh, whether it is Haridwar, or you come to Ganga, Prayag, or anything like that, all these places are the places where it is charged. Of course, here he has taken only the Ganga, but you can see that in this culture, every river is so sacred because there are places which are created to see that how people get charged at these places. And you are supposed to go in your lifetime to go to these places. We didn't have, as I said, that entertainment kind of a trips. We always had the spiritual trips. We always had the pilgrimages, whether it is young or old. It's a pilgrimage that was important. This culture is a culture of pilgrimages. We didn't have the visits to some attractive places for no reason of growth in your spiritual journey. It's always towards the spiritual journey. Therefore, this Ganga, right from the beginning of the Ganga, that's what is Gangotri, till the way that it approaches Sagara. You see that in Ganga, how many Punya Kshetras are there? How many special places of worship are there? If you go to those places, you see that you are charged spiritually. You don't have to do anything more than that. That's the reason why earlier people used to say, people even till today in some houses is like that. If you're going on a pilgrimage like a Char Dham Yatra, the moment that they know that you are going for a Char Dham Yatra, people would come to your house where they bring the fruits, they bring this, and they touch your feet because that you are going on this spiritual gain that you get it for us. It's not for any other gain that you touch the feet, because after all, we are not going to any special places, material places, so that material gains are there. No, this is a spiritual place. And what is that we get from the spiritual place? Is the spiritual blessings. In fact, many times I've seen the people who are going on the Char Dham Yatra. Naturally, Char Dham Yatra is so hard. Therefore, youngsters are going there for the Char Dham Yatra. But the moment that an elderly person also knows that this person is going on Char Dham Yatra, and that elderly person comes and touches the feet, says, "No, but you are elder to me. Why do you touch my feet?" No, no. Spiritual journey. There is no question of young or old. Spiritual journey is something for everyone. So, Ganga, Sagara, Gamanam, all the rivers, right from the birth of the river to the time that it merges into the ocean, that all these pilgrim centers are there for you, is to visit to see those places to be charged by that. Finally, the Sagara Gamanam, very important aspect is that Sagara is the place where the river loses its identity, its individuality. So the spiritual journey is where you lose your individuality. Rameshwaram is the place where you just dip yourself in such a way that it's ocean, there is no river at all. So all these things have to indicate that how you can dissolve your ego. So Kurute Ganga Sagara Kamanam, Vrata Paripalana Matva Danam. Similarly, rituals also included various vratas. Vratas include the fasting, vratas include abstaining from the sleep, abstaining from the sex for days together, months together, and also parting with your riches that is there. Part of the vrata is also dana. So vrata paripalanam, athva dana, various vratas. There are a lot of disciplines that are indicated in the form of every discipline is nothing but you control your sensory organs, your tongue. Therefore, you don't take food. In fact, many people go to many of these pilgrim centers and they give up what is supposed to be their fruit or the vegetable dish, which they really love so much. And that they give up. So, what an amount of discipline control that is there. So, therefore, all these vratas are being followed to see that how these suggestions are given to see that how you can transcend the body level. I've recently come across somebody in our own family so fond of something, and the moment that she went to Kashi and came back, afterwards she has given up. She doesn't go for that anymore. In fact, in our house, that has to be there every day. But in spite of it, she will not have it. What an amount of sanyama, inner control. That shows that you can free yourself from the clutches of the material world outside. When that is there, where is the question of Asha? Asha drops out. So therefore, Vratapaliparna Athava Danam, you give it. We have such wonderful stories about Dana, where you give it. Giving not for the sake of any benefit, but giving it for the sake of just getting rid of, getting idea of that attachment with that. In Mahabharata, Karna was supposed to be Dana Shura Karna. Great name for Dana. And just before going for the war, that evening, Krishna comes to Karna and says, "Hey Karna." Karna was surprised. Said Krishna, because he is champion in the Arjuna is on the other camp. And then he came here. So he said to Krishna, "What is that which made you to come here?" "No, I especially came to talk to you." "Oh, what is that? So urgent. It did not wait till the war is over." "No, it is very urgent. Particularly today, I need to talk to you." "Tell me, what is it?" He said, what's your parents? Who's your parents?" They were shocked. He said, what are you talking about parents? And that too in the battlefield, the middle of the battlefield. "I know my parents are Adhe." No, they are only the parents that you have. They grew, they got you, and then they have taken care of you. They are only your parents, but they are not even birth. So, yeah, but they are my parents right from the time that I know the jnana. That's what is that. But then do you know who is the real mother? "I don't know, but I am not interested also about the real mother. Because a mother who has abandoned the child, why should I be interested in that? I don't even want to know." But even if you don't want to know, but if you know it, makes it a big difference. He says it might make difference to you, but not for me. "Okay, let me tell you. Because you are going for the war. What will happen in the war, we don't know. But then you need to know about your real mother." I said, "What is that?" He says, "Kunti is your real mother. Kunti is Pandava's actual mother." This was a shock. This was like a bolt from the blue, from the sky. I said, "What do you mean by Kunti is my mother?" Then he gave the whole story. Kunti gave birth to him when she was a virgin. And therefore, that Karna becomes the eldest of the Pandavas. "Oh God." Said, "You knew it?" Karna asked, "Yes, I knew it." "Who else knows?" "Pandavas know because that you are so close. They don't know it. Only Kunti knows and I know it. Only we two know. But then, why did you not tell the Pandavas? Because the occasion has not come. Why are you telling me now? Because the occasion has come to tell you. What is that occasion? We said that if I give you the information that you are the eldest of the Pandavas, I want to give the same information to Yudhishthira also, the eldest of the Pandavas. So I want to take your permission before I give that. I don't know whether any other time Krishna has taken any permission of anybody. But it's just, I want to take permission of you before I give it. So don't give it. He said, "What do you mean by that?" He said, "The idea is that if you give information to Yudhishthira, Yudhishthira is going to give the kingdom to me, and then I will give this kingdom to Duryodhana. And Duryodhana should not rule the kingdom. So keep it a secret." Then the Pandavas will. Krishna says, "Extraordinary guy. I really appreciate you. I really like you." And the next day they were the war field. And then while fighting the war, Krishna asked Arjuna to hit him the chariot and some bring him down. So it happened. And then Karna is almost to die. At that point of time, Krishna says to Arjuna, let's go to Karna and talk to him because he's such a great warrior. He is dying. We should not allow him to die like that. He goes there and asks Karna. Arjuna says to Karna, I'm so sorry that this has happened. Karna said, oh, there's no question of sorry or anything in that. This is the time, and I finish. A few more breaths are there. Whatever you thought is right, you have done it. But I'm dying. And Krishna says, see, I've heard that you are a Shura Karna, which I've seen, but you're also a Dana Karna, Dana Shura Karna. So I want to see your Dana. Arjuna, when Krishna says like that, then Karna smiles. He says, Krishna, you could have come to my kingdom, I could have given, but now what can I give? There is nothing I have got. Arjuna was shocked. He said, Krishna is asking some dana at this point of time. That means some charity. Krishna says, no, no, Karna, you can give now. That was something extraordinary. Karna says that, Krishna, if you think that I can give you even now, please ask, because I may not live long, another few breaths before I breathe out. I'll give it to you, whatever you want to ask. Arjuna was also surprised, and Krishna, with a smile, he says, Karna, whole life that you have done so much of dana, so much of charity, and that charity you have gained so much of punya, the virtues. So I'm here asking you, give me all that punya that you have gained, virtues that you have gained, in the form of a dana. And Krishna asked that. Arjuna was really shocked. What is it Krishna is trying to do with a dying man? But Karna was so happy. He said that a person like Krishna asking for a dana, what can be more great? What can be more gracious than this? I definitely give all these things to you. But if you have asked this, there must be something extraordinary idea behind it. Let me know that. Let me hear from you before I leave this body. Krishna says that, my dear Karna, yes, you have done so much of dana, you collected so much of punya, virtue, and then you exhausted for virtue in the heaven, come back again, and then continue to work like that. I don't want you to come back again to work on the same principle, but you give all that dana of the punya so that you will get moksha, freedom. So this ultimate dana is the dana where that you have given up your asha, complete asha is given. So this way, when you have this dana, vrata, all those things are there with the help of jnana, the proper understanding. Then all these things will be useful. But when you don't do that, you might do for life after life after life for any amount of time, but then it is not going to give you the benefit. That's why he says that Kurte Ganga Sagara Gamanam Vrata Paripalanam Athava Danam Jnana Vihina Sarva Mateen. These are the there which is all the matas have this kind of thing. You look at any mata, there is something like dana, there is something like discipline, there is something like vrata. These are the things which are there in every mata, every discipline that is there. All these things are there, but in all these things, unless until that you don't know what's the idea behind it. Jnana vihinaha. Don't do it just mechanically. Don't do it only ritualistically. People call it as rituals. I don't want to call them as rituals because they have a deeper purpose to demand to elevate you to a spiritual level. So, jnana vihinaha sarvamatena bhajate namukti janma shakena. Even for 100 times that you come back again and again, it will not give you the mukti or moksha. Mukti or moksha can be there only when there is the jnana behind it. So now you look at all these things, these practice of vratas, this practice of dana, this practice of all these things that Shankaracharya has established, the parampara has established. It's not just only following that, but it has to have a jnana behind it. Without the jnana, then they becomes like mechanical practices. This is what Swami Vivekananda also said, that what happened to all this knowledge that you have? It's all given up. As a result of it, when you don't have the knowledge, your whole spirituality is in cooking pots. Your religion is only in the form of rituals, blind rituals that you follow. Why did you convert all these things like that? Why don't you go towards mukti or moksha? And this way, when understanding all those things and then doing the dana or doing the vrata, any vrata that you do with this understanding, any dana that you do with this understanding, that dana, that vrata is nothing but Bhaja Govindam. So now Bhaja Govindam is not confined to sitting and having some these things and then bells and ringing the bells and singing the name of Govinda. But it is there in all these aspects of it. All the vratas that you do, all the dana that you do, they're all filled with the idea of Bhaja Govinda. That's what is there. In the sense that, in another words, that whether you do the vrata, any kind of vrata that you do, or any kind of dana that you do it as a celebration, as something that comes out from within, that Brahman that is there within, that fullness that's there within. From that let it come as an expression. When it comes like that, then that becomes Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja Mudhamate. 18th Sutra, Sureshwacharya has given that Suramandira Taru Mula Nivasaha, Shaya Bhutala Matinam Vasaha, Sarva Parigraha Bhogatyagaha, Kasyat Sukham Nakurute Viragaha. Very beautiful sutra. Now he comes out of those things and now he gives a different kind of a sutra. It says that Sura Mandira Taru Mula Nivasaha. Maybe any place that where you live, and then Shaya Bhutala Madinam Vasaha, the shelter in the temple, the shelter under the same tree, some tree, sleeping on the plain, clear ground, wearing a deer skin, Ajinam Vasaha, and thus renouncing all idea of possession and thus to enjoy, to whom will not dispassion bring happiness? Vairagya, so kasya sukham, na karoti viraga. Viraga gives that sukha, the happiness, when you have this kind of an attitude. This is what is Sureshwara gives us. Let's look into that sutra, how deep this sutra can mean us. What do you mean by Bhaja Govindam? Let's classify it. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.